for the most part, wrapped up the study by early 2020, and Dean had intended to do a presentation early in the year, and then obviously with COVID and changes to council meetings, and Dean had intended to do a presentation early in the year, and then obviously with COVID and council meetings, and Dean had intended to do a presentation early in the year, and then obviously. So I apologize there. I stopped because there was an echo on my end. But so anyway, so there was a delay in the presentation of the study, but Dean is with us today. That the study has wrapped up, and Dean is here to present the results of the 2019 road needs study.
Thanks for the introduction. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can hear you. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. Go ahead, Dean.
All right, perfect. So as Rob mentioned, I'm here for the 2019 road needs study. Just go through a quick agenda. So we'll go through some background information on roads needs studies in general. We'll give the road needs results for the municipality, and then on to a budget analysis. So at Stantec, we like to start every presentation and meeting with a quick safety moment. I thought with kids being back in school bus safety would be a good one to touch on. So a few things I learned when researching this was the flashing lights themselves mean stop, not just the stop sign on the arm. So as soon as you see those flashing lights begin to blink, it's a good idea to slow down and stop. Another thing I learned was that on a divided road, if you're going against the traffic of the bus, it's not necessary to stop. I was always never quite sure whether or not I should be stopping, so I always stop just for the added safety. I guess it's not a bad idea, but it's not necessary. Okay, we'll move on to background information. So the field collection was completed according to the inventory manual for municipal roads, 1991. Whenever we do these presentations, everyone comments on the 1991, but the inventory manual is actually way ahead of its time in terms of pavement management principles. So a lot of the information in there is relevant even to today, and it's kind of the standard base case for most municipalities in Ontario. So only the hard surfaces, so HCB or hot mix asphalt and LCB or surface treated roads were rated. Gravel surface roads were excluded from data collection. So the results of the field collection were uploaded into Stantec's Road Matrix pavement management software for analysis. So one of the limitations of the inventory manual is it's got a worst first kind of principle, whereas today's pavement management like to try and keep the good roads good, and that's where Stantec's Road Matrix pavement management software comes in. It runs the analysis and provides total network for the budget. So as stated earlier, collection was done with the inventory manual for municipal roads, 1991. The road needs studies were initiated by MTO in the 1970s to provide equitable funding subsidies to municipalities. Many municipalities discontinued the practice when the conditional funding stopped. As the years went by, more municipalities started taking it on again, identifying the need for pavement management studies for internal decision making. And then just recently with the new regulation and asset management's required across the board, including pavement management studies. So as I said earlier, the concepts and principles for the inventory manual are sound even to today. And the collection provides an updated summary of the road condition ratings and provides current and future physical and financial needs of the road system. So as part of field collection, the following attributes were collected. Structural adequacy, so essentially the amount of distress observed on each of the roads. Ride quality, or the smoothness of the roads. Drainage, so in urban centers, it's assumed that the storm sewers are doing their job adequately. So unless stated otherwise by the municipality, we consider the drainage to be in good condition or perfect. And then in rural cross sections, this is rated based on the depth and condition of the ditches. We also collected surface and platform widths to make sure that the roads are adequate in terms of their widths for the use of the road. And then horizontal and vertical alignment deficiencies. So this would include having to slow down for curves, stopping sight distances on curves and vertical curves. And then from this information, an overall PCI or pavement condition index was calculated for each section. So the PCI is based on your structural adequacy and ride quality. Those are what factor into your overall PCI. And then for each of these sections, the time of need was categorized for structural adequacy, drainage, geometrics, surface width, and capacity. So your time of need is a prediction of time until reconstruction is required. The categories are now need. So this would be for a road that's failed in one of those categories. 1 to 5 year need, 6 to 10 year need, and roads that are adequate. So structural adequacy is the one that we really like to look at because that's telling you your pavement condition. So a few examples. So on the top left, we have a now need road. It's completely alligator cracked. You see some rutting, some potholes, water ponding on the road. Then at your top right corner, you have your 1 to 5 year need. So you're starting to see some significant distress more towards the center line and then in the wheel pass with the alligator cracking. Your 6 to 10 year need, you're starting to see some distress, some cracking, usually transverse longitudinal cracking, but no structural cracking. So the structural cracking would be like rutting, alligator cracking, that kind of stuff, which indicates a structural failure. And finally, in the bottom right, we have our adequate roads. So these are showing little to no distress. So the roads needs results. So the goal of the roads needs study was to help provide the following information, help develop appropriate rehabilitation programs. So you have your overall breakdown of the network condition, the rehabilitation requirements for the network, and then the rehabilitation timing. So when to apply those rehabilitations and the costs. So in terms of network breakdown, so a largely rural network. So 48% of the roads in the municipality are gravel roads. Those were not reviewed, as stated earlier. 35% are low-class bituminous or surface-treated roads. And then 17% are high-class bituminous or hot mix asphalt roads. Paved network by roadside environment. So 77% of the roads are rural, hence the largely rural network. 15% are urban and 8% are semi-urban. So the difference between urban and semi-urban is that a semi-urban is in an urban area, but the cross section of the road is more like a rural road. So ditches and gravel shoulders, whereas an urban road would have a storm sewer, curb and gutter. So for the overall network condition, the structural adequacy of the pavement is a good indicator of the overall network condition. So these are the stresses you can see on the road. So based on the study we did, 50% of the roads were assessed to be adequate. 19% were in the 1 to 5 year range. 17% were in the 6 to 10 year range, and 14% were now needs. And the overall PCI of the network was 67.8. So this was actually a very, very good network. Anything approaching 70 is a very good network. It's difficult to keep a PCI of 70 across an entire network. In most municipalities in Ontario, they'd be in the 60s to low 60 to lower 60 range of PCI. So the network condition is very good in the municipality. Semi-ransom analysis and network rehabilitation requirement. So the current needs for the network were determined based on every section receiving the optimal rehabilitation or maintenance based on the current condition. So this represents every optimal rehabilitation option for each section. So now needs would see reconstruction, 1 to 10 year needs would be resurfaced. Some adequate roads would receive preventive maintenance such as crack sealing. And then the total now needs, if we had an unlimited budget right now, would be $12.3 million today. So then we get into rehabilitation timing. So prioritization for your road network should not be based on repairing the roads in the worst condition. Modern pavement management philosophy is to keep the good roads in good condition, and because maintaining the good roads is a better return on investment. So this is a pretty common graph in most pavement management presentations. So it shows a good road, a brand new road, which would be a 10 out of 10 on the left. And then as time goes on, the road slowly starts to deteriorate. And when it gets to a certain point, it deteriorates pretty sharply and then kind of levels out as it gets worse and worse. So what we're trying to say here is that each $1 of rehabilitation at year 12, if you just delay a few more years, could cost you $4 to $5. So this is the whole keep your good roads in good condition. It's much more efficient to resurface good roads and push out the life of the road than it is to just go around reconstructing the worst roads. This can sometimes be difficult to explain to the public. I often tell uneducated friends that if they think their management doesn't know what they're doing because they're resurfacing roads, they're perfectly fine. I like to tell them that no, they know exactly what they're doing. They're probably ahead of the curve on these types of things. So then we got into the actual rehabilitation costs. So costs were provided by the municipality, recent contracts. That's how we got the unit rates for how to do each rehabilitation timing. And then 4 budgets were analyzed as part of the study. So a do nothing budget, so we don't spend any money. And that's the yellow line here. You can clearly see it completely drops pretty consistently over time. Maintain existing conditions. So that was to keep the PCI at the 67.8 level. And for that, it required $16.5 million over 10 years. Something to note about this is it's not constant funding each year. Some years will need a lot more money, some years need a lot less, but over the 10 years, it was 16.5 million. Then we had unlimited funding. So some people like to think that this graph should go all the way up to 100. Every road should be perfect. But the thing here is we only apply maintenance or resurfacing when it's needed. So there's no sense in resurfacing a road that's in an adequate position, so you let it deteriorate. So that's why nothing ever gets to perfect on these unlimited funding models. So for that, you'd need 19.3 million over the next 10 years. But like I said earlier, it was about, I think, 12 in the first year alone, and then the 7 over the resulting years. So limited funding models usually aren't reasonable or applicable. Then we also ran the proposed municipality budget, which was $1 million for the asphalt road network, $500,000 for the surface treated roads, and $20,000 for crack sealing. So this resulted in the PCI going down about 1 point over the 10 years. So the existing rehabilitation budget is pretty good and is doing well, and the PCI will slowly go down with this. So there is still a bit of a gap, but it's nothing major. So then something else we analyzed, some stuff we identified during our field collection was we wanted to put a cost to some of the capital improvements. So whenever there was a surface width deficiency or a surface type deficiency, we calculated the cost for upgrading those roads. So a surface type deficiency is when a road starts seeing too much traffic, that it should go from either a gravel road to a surface treated road, or alternatively from a surface treated road to a hot mix asphalt road. So we ran the analysis on all the deficiencies. So gravel to surface treated road was about a deficiency of about $285,000. Before I go, we also projected traffic to the next 10 years. So identified any roads within the next 10 years that should meet these requirements for surface type deficiencies. And that was based on a 1% annual growth rate for traffic. So for gravel to surface treated roads, there was just a few sections that we identified for potential upgrade based on traffic. Total cost about $290,000. And that's generally because gravel roads and surface treated roads, you just come in and you put the surface treat, maybe top up with the gravel a little bit, then come in and surface treat the roads. So it's not a huge undertaking. Surface treat to hot mix asphalt roads, that's a different story. You have to come in. We assumed reconstruction with hot mix asphalt. The idea behind that was if you're gonna pave a road, you might as well do it right the first time. Otherwise, you're gonna run into issues down the line. So that was the largest expense. There were quite a few sections identified, and the total cost would be $21.6 million in today's dollars. And then inadequate widths, so widening in rural and widening in semi-urban sections, we have about $1 million and $600,000 for a total of $23.4 million. So if we spread out these improvements over 10 years, it'd be about $2.3 million a year. Any questions? That's the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Dean. I'll ask the questions then. Yeah, I think they're ready.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, Dean, do you have any indication or how much we can save per kilometer of road if we were to surface it, even tar and check over leaving the gravel? How much could we save over a 10-year period that way?
Sorry, so the question was the amount of savings for surface treating gravel roads, like the savings in, I guess, maintenance of gravel roads?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. We didn't run the exact numbers for that, and it's kind of different for each municipality. There generally is savings when you convert from gravel to surface treated. Gravel roads, depending on the amount of traffic on the road, you could be out there every week grading. Whereas with surface treat, you generally just leave it, inspect for potential potholes. But your municipality is also in a unique situation where you do a lot of your own surface treating work in-house. So I was talking with Andrew about this, and basically the savings for gravel roads would be the savings in equipment and manpower, essentially, or I guess person power, sorry. So if you converted from gravel to surface treated, you could have less people working in the maintenance operations. But since your municipality does a lot of their own surface treating and work such as that, if you lose that person power, there could be an issue being able to complete that stuff as well as with all the other work you guys are doing. So it would have to be a detailed analysis taken to determine what the general savings would be. But sorry, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think there is a general number for savings when you convert from gravel to surface treated. I can look into that for you and get back to you.
And Alan? No, okay. Councillor Arts?
Through your mayor, Dean. I've got a question I probably can't answer, but I was going to ask it anyways. When we have say a new subdivision go up, the construction guys are supposed to have one access to the road, and 9 times out of 10 they either are misinformed or they don't care, and they go driving through the roads that they shouldn't. These subdivision roads that are getting pounded by heavy equipment and tandem trucks that are twisting when they turn and all that, how much time have they taken off that road by illegally using something we told them not to?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Again, it's a case-by-case basis based on the amount of construction traffic. But in general, I would say like for development that's intended for housing, residential development, those roads are generally not built to hold a lot of construction or truck traffic. So I've seen roads completely get destroyed based on construction. I've seen other roads hold up pretty well. It all depends on how much traffic they get and the weight of all those loads. It really is a case by case basis.
So to continue that, if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, as a municipality, should we be telling that contractor to redo the road that they weren't supposed to drive on?
Yes, you could. If you see a significant distress, that could be something you could approach. You could put it out in the contract beforehand too. Set forth the routes that they can use and cannot use. And then you could do an in-house inspection before and after. At Stantec, we've done that for mainly large gas companies. We'll check the roads for a municipality before they install a gas line or something like that, and then after to see if there was any major deterioration or not. But that can also be done in-house by just documenting the distresses that you see.
Okay, thank you.
So if I can just jump in. So Councillor Arts, are you referring to the new roads, say within the new development, or in regards to existing roads that they're traveling on their way into the new development?
Existing roads?
Okay.
And we have
Yeah.
another-
I assume for the new roads that they are developing, they leave that top lift off, right, until they're done and fix any of the base damage that they see prior to paving that top lift, Rob?
That's correct. That would be required prior to the assumption process.
Well, my issue is they've been going through a subdivision that's been there for 10 years and they keep using that road without.
Yep, understood.
We have a question from Councillor Scott.
Yes, through the mayor to Dean. Dean, you mentioned redoing newer roads, like repaving them. Are you speaking of you grind off the top part and then just repave it, so that helps to protect the road from ruining the base? Is that what you were referring to in your report?
Correct. So when you have the different levels, so reconstruction will always obviously be the roads in terrible condition. Those now need roads. And then if you have a 1 to 5 year need road, that would probably be 2 lifts of asphalt. So you'd take off approximately 90 and then put it back. And then when you get into those 6 to 10 years would be a single lift. So maybe you pull off either 40 or 50 millimeters of asphalt and then pave back that. And that just greatly extends the service life of the road. You do those smaller lifts, mills, and overlays.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Dean? Seeing none, then Dean, I apologize again for the delay. I appreciate your safety message to kick things off. We do a lot of that kind of communication these days. And I think there's a lot of good content in there. It's good to hear that our roads are in good shape. So thank you for that. And I think we didn't get a copy of the report, so I think maybe if anybody wants one, they can speak to Rob probably, right? Yeah, okay, I'll just make that assumption. So if there's nothing else then, thank you very much, Dean, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. My contact info will be in the report.
Great, thanks kindly and appreciate that. Bye for now.
Thank you very much.
Moving on, then we did staff report 7.1, and we were just going to go to 7.2, which was the tender result, and we were having problems with Rob's volume, or our volume, 2 Robs. So if you're there, Rob, and you want to start that when you're ready.
Yep, through you, Madam Mayor. So item 7.2 is a straightforward report. It's just it's a small municipal drain project. It's the award of the construction tender to Van Bree at $89,450. The pricing came in reasonably close together, and it was so we recommend the award to Van Bree. It was acceptable pricing. There's been no no feedback from landowners as far as any concerns.
Okay, thank you for that report. Are there questions of the engineer? Yes, Councillor Scott.
Yes, through the mayor, to Rob. I only had one question. I noticed in financial implications that they come up with a cost of $125,000, and then it came in. What do you think we're going with that? Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Councillor Scott. Could I get you to repeat the last part of that? I heard the part about the question about 125,000. I just didn't catch the tail end of that.
And yes, so the tail end was basically we chose 89,450, the lower one. Is that unusual for them to be that much lower than what the engineers thought the cost would be?
Yeah, it's difficult on a small project. You tend to potentially see more variability on something that's small. But the engineer would have made certain assumptions, and the contractor, not a lesser quality of work, but they may have a different method of operations that they saw cost savings. So I wouldn't say it's unusual, no.
Okay, that just stood out. Thank you.
Are there other questions? Seeing none, the motion before us is that the construction of the municipal drain be awarded to the lowest tender bid submission received from Banbury Drainage and Modem Limited in the amount of $89,450 excluding HST. Could I have a mover and a second, please? Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Heffernan, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, thanks, Rob. Moving on to 7.3 is the council meeting schedule. And corporate services. Yes, thank you.
Yes, I can speak to that through the chair. You have before you the report for the 2021 council meeting schedule. I'll just highlight a few items from that report. In 2020, council meetings were held on a 2-week rotating basis. In most cases, the first meeting of the month was held at 9:30 a.m. and the second meeting of the month, the planning public meeting, was held at the normally scheduled time of 6 p.m. There was an exception to this model on September 23rd, 2020, whereby an all-day public planning meeting was held, commencing at 9:30 a.m., allowing council and staff to process a number of applications. Based on the success of this format in 2020, we are recommending that council meetings in 2021 be set as 9:30 a.m. for the first meeting of each month and 6 p.m. for the second meeting of the month. Recognizing, however, that there is some flexibility based on the quantity of agenda matters, the meetings will be arranged with this model, but they could change from time to time. From our analysis, there are a number of benefits to continuing with this model. It allows flexibility for members of the public to attend a session in either the evening or in the morning, which coincides with their other commitments. Further, there are potential financial savings realized by the organization in terms of potential overtime staffing costs. And finally, it allows for efficiency in that council and staff can continue to process what has been a high volume, particularly development-related applications. So by proceeding in this manner, it allows staff and council to continue to conduct the business of the organization efficiently. I'll leave it at that at this time. However, should council have any questions, I'm more than happy to field those. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Are there questions of the clerk? Closer?
Oh, they're having a very difficult time hearing you I think it's a microphone issue, so if you could just speak as loudly as possible.
Sorry about that. I'm asking, are there any questions of the clerk on that report? Seeing none, then motion before us is that report CPS 50/2020 regarding the council meeting schedule be received, and that the 2021 Middlesex Centre Council meeting schedule attached to Appendix A1 be approved. You mover and second. Councillor Scott and Councillor Arts. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Item 7.4 is the budget amendment for 4 gas monitoring system. And I believe the fire chief will be presenting that report. Colin, are you there?
There we are. Thank you, Mayor. Through you to council, outside the realm of what I've stated in my report, there isn't much more I wish to elaborate on at this point. However, I'm more than happy to respond to any questions council may have.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions of the chief? Councillor Shipley.
Through the mayor, Colin, how many units are you looking at buying, Colin?
It was hard to hear your question, Councillor Shipley. I think I heard it as what type of monitors, what make of monitors we're looking at purchasing?
No, I'm just wondering how many you're looking at buying, purchasing, how many units are you going to purchase?
Sorry again, Councillor Shipley. I can't, it's really muffled. I can't hear a thing you're saying.
Colin, the councillor is asking about how many, the quantity.
Oh, the quantity. Yes, sorry. We're looking at purchasing 6. So we have 1 which will be at each station and placed on either the rescue or the engine as the station chief sees fit, and 1 is a roving spare.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the chief? Councillor Arts.
Through your mayor to Colin, I've been told we had issues with the last monitors, so I take it this time we're buying a better quality.
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Arts, that is correct. So when we did the, prior to my arrival, when my chiefs did the review in 2013, 2014, they chose the monitor system, the gas monitoring system that we're purchasing now. It is the, I want to say it's the most respected system in the service, and great warranty, good service, very cost effective and very reliable.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, then the motion before us is that a budget amendment for the purchase of a 4 gas monitoring system be considered and funded from the Fire Vehicles and Equipment Reserve Fund in the amount of $30,690 plus HST for immediate purchase. A mover, please. Councillor Shipley and Councillor Heffernan, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you kindly, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor.
Item 7.5 is with respect to residential speed limits. Rob or Andrew, I think one of you will be presenting this.
Yeah, so through you, Madam Mayor, I will present, and Andrew's on hand here to assist in answering any questions after. And I'll just say, just so everyone's aware, your volume is coming through much clearer now than it was previously. So yeah, the report, this has been a while in the making, but this is a report to look at the implementation of 40km/h speed limits in residential areas within the municipality. I'll go through the report. I'll kind of identify certain areas to highlight. I won't go through in line by line by any means. So the intent is to take a targeted approach with this and to identify specific areas to limit the speed to 40 km/h. So as I think everyone's aware on council and the public in general, is that speeding is most definitely a frequent complaint that we receive from residents, and I'm sure we all have instances that we can point to where we've seen such issues. The speed of a vehicle obviously has major implications to the severity of a crash and the potential for fatality with pedestrians or cyclists. So part of this report is really that we're targeting the intent of protecting those that are most vulnerable, which are the pedestrians and cyclists that are unprotected when they're along the roadside. So there's several things that play into that are factors within the identifying both the speed limits and then as well as how fast people actually travel. So those include the road geometrics, the classification, what type of illumination are along the roads, what there is for side friction. So that can be even trees, or if there's other planter boxes or different types of things that makes the roadway feel more confined, people will typically slow down. And then as well as the land use itself, certainly in open agricultural fields lends themselves to feeling like you can drive faster than in an urban area. So in May of 2017, the Safer School Zones Act was brought in, and it received assent, which allows municipalities to designate areas where the speed limit is lower than 50 km/h. So then also the Highway Traffic Act was recently amended to allow municipalities to pass a bylaw to set speed limits less than 50 kilometers for all roads within a designated area. So we have the opportunity, if we wished, to designate all roads within the municipality, all that are within our jurisdiction, just to be clear, because we have the county as well, to less than 50 kilometers if we so choose to do. So the urban areas or centers that we're aware of that currently do have this in place are Ottawa, Hamilton, Toronto, and London. And so, for example, London has actively been using the 40 kilometer per hour zone for, I'm going to say it's about a year now. So, and there are some areas within Canada that have actually gone below the 40 kilometers per hour as well. So the rate of speed, as part of the budget approval in 2019, we had included budget for Vision Zero, both on the operational side and capital side. So the targeted approach that we're going to use here is going to use some of that budget to implement these measures. So the idea of Vision Zero is really to eliminate injury and fatality in collisions. And it really, if you look at the impact of speed, the likelihood of fatality really does drop off drastically as you approach the 40 kilometers or 30 kilometers or less speeds. So the approach we took was to kind of identify key areas within the municipality and to take that targeted approach. So we wanted to look at areas where there was large pedestrian generators, like parks or schools, community centers, and because those generate some of the greatest volume of vulnerable road users, like pedestrians and cyclists. So we thought this takes a measured approach to the speed limit reductions, and it provides us an opportunity to evaluate the speed limit reduction effectiveness, and minimizing or finding kind of a sweet spot for the cost for now. And then we can look at the impact of these and then decide whether they should be rolled out to further areas in the future, or to take other measures within those areas as well. So it'll improve our decision-making going forward. The concern with a wholesale implementation of the speed limits across the settlement area is that we didn't feel that we're likely to see significant speed reductions. We did reach out to a neighboring municipality that's had this implemented, and they're not seeing a significant change. So they've actually conducted studies, 65 and 40 kilometer per hour zones and almost 250 kilometer per hour zones to identify the average speed in those areas. And they found that the average speed actually only was reduced by about 1 kilometer per hour, even though it was the zone was identified as 10 kilometers per hour slower. And this is kind of what we would expect to see, is that if you're simply putting up signage, it doesn't do a lot to slow the average driver down. And so one of the things that we wanted to look at further was what we said, okay, so if it doesn't change the average speed a lot, well, what does it do to those people that kind of ignore the limit and drive at faster speeds? And would we see a significant drop in the upper end of the speeds, which is where you have a much greater chance of severe injury or fatality? And the result there too, so looking at the 85th percentile, that there was only, again, about just over right around 1.4 kilometers per hour change in the 85th percentile. And so just to kind of clarify, the 85th percentile, it identifies the speed at which 85% of the vehicles are going that speed or slower. So we didn't see a dramatic drop in the upper end of the speeds either. So the other issue we looked at was, okay, well, does it make sense to lower speed limits to 30 kilometers per hour in specific areas? And the decision that was made was no. And the issue there is that if we lower, say, a school zone to 30 kilometers per hour, and the roadside still feels like it should be driven at 50 kilometers per hour, is that if people are not complying, and students or others may have a expectation that cars are doing closer to 30 kilometers per hour, there's a perception there that they expect a slower speed, but they may step out on the road when cars are actually traveling still at closer to the 50 kilometers per hour. So it can actually make it more dangerous for pedestrians and cyclists if we're artificially lowering the speed limit without any and not getting compliance. So then the other side of that is if we did lower it, then really the way to get the compliance is that we would need further enforcement. And we know that the OPP, they do a great job and they do what they can, but they can't be everywhere at once. So looking at school zones. So we do currently have school zones in place that have the 40 kilometers per hour designation. And those are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, year round. The approach taken for some school zones and some municipalities is they do it for a set amount of time per day. So it might be that like the school day may be 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. and that's the only time that there's a reduced speed, and that can cause some confusion as well, where people think they may forget what time of day it is, and so we think it's much more straightforward just to stay with the set reduced speed 24 hours a day. And then we also looked at community safety zones. So the Highway Traffic Act allows municipalities to designate a part of a highway under the jurisdiction as a community safety zone, if in council's opinion, public safety is a special concern on that part of the highway. So this is where we've looked at the areas along parks, along community centers and senior citizen homes or playgrounds, areas where there is a higher concern for pedestrian safety. And we've identified those for reduction to 40 kilometers per hour as well. So one of the big issues we have here in the municipality is the county roads and the speeds of vehicles on the county roads. And it may be the majority, maybe 50-50, but certainly a lot of the concerns and complaints that we receive from residents regarding speeding are actually on the county zones or on the county roads. So when we put out the speed radar sign to collect data, probably at least 50% of the setups are actually on county road, collecting data and trying to slow traffic. So unfortunately, we don't have jurisdiction over those roads, and many of those roads are higher volume roads, and the intent is that they do need to operate at times at a higher speed than what a local residential street is, because the nature of the road is different. We just have circumstances where some of the county roads go through residential areas where we still have many driveways, and it's still very much a residential feel, but we have a county road that goes through. So this is, and when I get into signage, I'll explain a bit more about the interaction between the county roads and our local roads. So moving forward with this, to support the program, there's really three E's that we're looking at for this to help with the support and implementation of the 40 kilometers per hour speed limits, both in what we're recommending now and then if we ever do more in the future. So first part is engineering. So that to look at and develop solutions known for road safety problem areas, and then update our design standards. So with the development of new subdivisions as we progress forward, we'll be doing an update to our design standards, and we'll be incorporating further traffic calming measures there. So the time to implement it is, when the subdivision is built, and those might be speed tables or speed bumps, narrower roads. There's different measures that can be taken to try to slow down the traffic in those local areas, so we don't have to deal with it down the road. Some work better than others, and you still obviously get those that will still exceed the speed. Then the second part is enforcement. And like I said, OPP has been great. We've been communicating with them and providing them identification of quote unquote hotspots within the municipality when we receive complaints, and have provided them some data as well. So we'll continue to work with them as a partner, and as we collect speed data in different locations, we'll continue to identify to them the areas that are in most need of enforcement. Obviously they make their decisions as to what time they can put in to do that enforcement, but we will continue communication with them. And then the third part is education. So to engage with residents and provide them some tools to create slower neighborhoods. So we've had in the works the development of lawn signs, like I'm sure people have seen elsewhere in the City of London, or even we see City of London signs on some of our residents' front yards. So we've developed a similar type of sign so people can put up the respect the limit type signs, and those will be going into production right shortly. And then also furthering education, using our social media and our website to reach out to residents, provide them information, some information when there's back to school or winter maintenance. Our staff have been great getting out messages, and we'll continue down that road to provide more information. And then another part of education and kind of developing relationships is just reaching out with different programs and partnerships that we can do, and so we can kind of get ideas from others and share our experiences as well. Obviously the Middlesex OPP is a major one, and the London Middlesex Road Safety Coalition as well. And then there's school boards and the health unit, and just to liaise as we can and get information from them and share information. So in summary, Vision Zero ensures a future with zero severe collisions. So part of this, achieving this or moving to this direction, is the implementation of these targeted 40 km/h speed limits. And that doesn't mean that's all there'll be. We may expand that in the future, but also support that through future engineering and education and enforcement actions. So we're proposing reduced speed limits of 40 km/h for the minor streets and settlement areas adjacent to large pedestrian generators. And on the speed limit would not apply to arterial roads, and we'd also implement the 40 km/h speed limits on the community safety zones. So we've identified on some maps, and hopefully council has a copy of it. We've identified in red in the various communities where we're proposing these different 40 km/h zones. So if you have any questions as to why certain areas were selected, we can go through that. And quickly, the financial implications. So to take the targeted approach, the cost is just less than $24,000 versus if we had signed the entire settlement areas, it would have been about $65,000. And part of so this kind of goes back to the county roads. Part of our issue is with the county roads going through so many of our settlement areas is that we wouldn't be able to sign the settlement area at just the external entry points, because that's actually on county roads. So it would create confusion because we can't change the speed limit on the county roads. So we'd have to actually sign all the roads as you exit the county road onto the local roads. So it would require quite a bit of signage. And even with that, there may still be some confusion between county roads and local roads. As far as the cost for our endeavors here, it's supported through both the operational budget and the capital budget, as mentioned earlier. So we currently have 500 respect the limit lawn signs that are under order, and those will be distributed to residents, or we'll set up pickup locations where residents can come in and collect those. And then we're also purchasing additional road traffic calming signage. As some people would have seen, we had like tiger tails and 40 km/h signs within the center of some of the roadways this year. And then we're also going to purchase a second speed radar display trailer. It's the one we have is very, very popular and is kept very busy. And we'll have no issue using a second one to collect further data and provide some additional enforcement. So I won't go through the diagrams themselves, but if anybody has any specific questions on them, we can certainly answer your questions. So I'll end my presentation there, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for all of that information. I'm going to start with council, and then I see people looking at me. So did you want to start over there? Go ahead, Debbie.
Through the mayor to Rob, the 40 km residential or speed limit, I understand it can't be put on the county roads, However, can you put the community safety zones on the county roads? Like, for example, in Ilderton, beginning of town, like at the fire hall on Hyde Park, right up to the end, and the other on Ilderton Road. Is that a possibility?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Heffernan, so I'm guessing your goal there would be to double the speed fines in those areas, even if we can't reduce the speed limit?
Exactly.
Okay, so I believe we would require the county consent for that still, but I would have to go back and confirm that.
Okay, because and if you're going to do that, that would be great if you could get Chris to extend the 50-kilometer way back to the fire hall instead of just before that walkway on Heritage.
Right.
The other thing is, I'm very happy to see that there's going to be another mobile speed display unit purchased, because I know you had them set out before, but they could have been there longer. And, you know, I don't know how many people you actually caught or not. Well, I don't know how it triggers exactly.
Yeah, so those really, there's no enforcement with those other than we're collecting data, and it's a bit of a visual deterrent for people. That, you know, they see their speed, ideally they slow down, and but having it in a location for a week, although it provides us some data, it does have a limited effect once it's gone, right? It may help reduce the speed for a bit of time, but it does provide us some good information to know whether or not we should be looking at installing some traffic calming measures in that location, and it also gives us information to pass on to the OPP.
Okay, and the another thing is, I noticed for the Ilderton specifically, the map, it's only a very short section on Heritage and Robert. There are certain streets in Ilderton that seem to be raceways, as you mentioned. The one is Robert because it goes to the post office. The other one is Stonefield Gate that goes straight around to Hyde Park, which I'm told that people will, to avoid the light, which is not very long, but anyway, they'll go through that subdivision, the Deerhaven subdivision, and of course Martin Drive as well. So in the future, would we be able to extend these 40-kilometer zones into those streets specifically?
Yeah, so the approach that we've taken right now is that all the areas that we've identified are adjacent to park spaces or community centers. So the roads you've identified don't have those actually fronting onto the road in those areas. That doesn't mean that we can't expand this in the future. You know, we could go back and you know, that might require a more site-specific study of those areas to see what how traffic is functioning and whether or not it's warranted. And maybe in those areas, maybe it wouldn't be a reduction in speed limit. Maybe it would be an implementation of some traffic calming to try to get compliance with the actual existing speed limit.
Okay, thank you.
I'll take Councillor Scott next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the mayor to Rob. I think it's important to everybody, the speeding, and I hear lots about it too. We're at the other end in Delaware, and we got Longwoods Road, which is a county road to deal with, which we've spoken of. The respect the speed limits, the banners that you're going to get made. I think they're probably a good idea too. Is that something that we could put on a county road, even though we're not changing the speed limit? Because the speed limit on Longwoods isn't bad. It's just nobody follows it. You know what I mean? So that's where the problem is, and with the horizon of the hill. And I get call after call just this week. I think myself and the mayor spoke to somebody really concerned about traffic and trying to walk. So I'm wondering if, I know they're kind of temporary because you got to move them to cut the grass and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I think the important part we need to work on is educating the people. You're right, changing the speed limit isn't going to change nothing. And even fines, you know, they get them. We heard about fines even before, you know, they get them and then they keep doing it again and again and again. So that's why I'm wondering if we could implement something along that line by using them to start to educate people that they need to respect it. And as a community, we got to work on that together, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. Education is important. It's really trying to change a whole mindset of the, of your average driver. The use of the radar signs on the county roads. So the county is fine with us placing them different locations. We just have to, make sure that they're placed in an appropriate location. So they're fine with that. It just doesn't provide enforcement, other than it allows us to provide that information back to the OPP. The respect the limit signs. So those are the smaller signs that are just really intended for somebody's front yard. So we're going to have like pickup. We haven't determined yet which locations, but we'll have pickup locations that people can come and collect those for free to put up. So they technically should be put on their front lawn. So they could be put along a county road, just set back from the road.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering if there's something we might be able to implement with those signs. And maybe we do have to, talk to the county for sure to work with them on that. And I'd be willing to look at that, because long as it's a long road and there isn't a whole bunch of laneways going up the hill at all, but the signs might be effective.
Yeah, okay. So I was wondering if you were thinking they're kind of between the curb and the sidewalk type thing.
There's a nice grass area that doesn't get cut that we can put things on. And then could put them on at least during the summer hours, days for summer period. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yep. We can talk to the county about that, certainly.
Oh, that. Thank you.
I have Councillor Shipley next.
Through the mayor to Rob, just to add on to what Councillor Hefner was saying, Rob, I guess or is it appropriate to approach the county and ask if some of these county roads could be brought down to 40 kilometers an hour? Or is it something the county is just going to say, no, we can't do that because we have to go county-wide? So I guess my question is, can it be done in Middlesex Centre without involving the whole county? Thank you.
Yep. So through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Shipley, we can certainly ask the question, and I'm quite certain it's been asked previously. I think you touched on a good point that the county likes to keep things an approach that's county-wide, right? So I think they would be very hesitant to reduce it down to 40 kilometers through the communities. I think if we could actually get compliance to the 50 kilometers, that would be a huge first step, because certainly some of the county roads we know that, the 85th percentile is not 55 kilometers. It might be 60 or 65 or whatever, right? So if we can get much better compliance, that would be a big benefit. And there's, part of it, this goes back to the roadside environment that I had identified before. There's not a whole lot of opportunity to change that until roads are reconstructed, and then when that happens, to try to increase, say, the urban feel or the tightness of that road cross section. Really, that physical feeling is really what tends to make traffic slow down, right? So we will continue to liaise with the county, but I don't think that they would want to take that approach right now, but we can certainly revisit that and ask the question.
Thanks, Rob. I'd be happy with 50. Being down to 50, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Silva, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thanks. Honestly, I'm really confused. The original motion was to set a default unposted speed limit as 40 kilometers an hour. You use the word default in this report, but it's not. Like, you're not actually proposing or recommending a default 40. So I'm actually really concerned that this is going to make things even worse, where people are used to driving 50 on the road, and then all of a sudden you gotta slow down in front of the park, and then you can speed up again. And then if you're going down Westbrook Drive, you gotta slow down again. Like, we've got problems on all along Westbrook Drive, not just in front of the park. We have problems all down Kilworth Park Drive. We have problems on Springer Street, on Queen Street. These are all municipal roads. They are not county roads. You haven't identified any of them for some reason as trouble spots, even though the majority of the emails you get from residents of Komoka and Kilworth, and the ones that I forward you and the ones that I get, are all about streets like that. And yet you're talking about you're not actually talking about doing a default speed limit event change of any kind. You're talking about introducing community safety zones. There's nothing wrong with that, but A, that wasn't the original intent of the motion passed, and B, I really fear that this is actually going to make things worse.
So through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Silva. So if you read the recommendation, the default speed limit is as applied to areas adjacent to the large pedestrian generator. So that's the default speed for just those areas. I understand your concerns, and you're right. There are a number of complaints about other roads that that this report does not cover within that 40-kilometer zone. But this is where I guess we've identified that simply putting a tag of 40 kilometers on an area doesn't necessarily get compliance. So our concern is that if we post everything 40 kilometers, that we're still not going to get compliance. So I think these areas that we're experiencing issues with, this is where we can still look at other traffic calming measures to try to reduce speeds to get better compliance with the existing speed limit in place. Right. So just because it's not included, but they're not identified within this report as a reduction in speed, doesn't mean that we don't plan to continue to try to work with traffic calming measures and get better compliance.
Yeah. Okay. But then my concern is this is going to take, this is a never ending thing. This is going to take like a decade plus to find the budget and try to even make a dent at resolving some of the most serious areas. Like, I'm not trying to pretend that just posting 40 is like, great, we're done. Everybody is going to drive slower now. Obviously not. And you and I have talked about that. And I talked about that with Jake before he left, and with Andrew just a few weeks ago. I get that. But at the same time, if we don't set an expectation of this is the way you should be driving amongst your neighbors, amongst children, amongst seniors, amongst the people you live by, and being reasonable about the fact that you're going to lose a few seconds at most going 44 instead of 54, like we're never going to get there. Like I'm sorry, I don't understand the rationale between, just saying like you got to slam the brakes all of a sudden when you get close to this park, and then you're allowed to speed up again. You're worried about non-compliance. Like, this is going to be a non-compliance nightmare as far as I'm concerned. This is not going to make things any better unless you actually set an expectation that this is the way you drive in a residential area. Edmonton's gone with 30 in some areas, as you identified. You talked to London, and we all know the jokes about drivers in London. So I'm not sure why you're using that as your benchmark, as your only benchmark by the looks of it, based on we spoke to a neighboring municipality. And from my conversation with Andrew a few weeks ago, I'd like to see some hard data from those other jurisdictions, which I'm not seeing here in this report. Like, I don't like it. I can't support this. This is not the goal of the original motion. This is not, you're right. This is not a panacea, and certainly the way you're recommending it here, I don't think things are going to get better. I think they're actually going to get worse. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and through the chair to Councillor Silva. Yeah, thank you for your comments. Obviously, it's not a wholesome solution. It's staff trying to look at an issue and trying to do this as a start. As Rob mentioned, we'll learn from this. We'll build on this. It might not be the set-all solution that you're looking for, but at least it's a beginning point for us to learn from it, and then we can maybe look at some other continuing traffic calming measures. So it's not something that this is the be-all and end-all.
Correct. I said as much, but again, this was not the aim of the original motion pass. The original motion pass was to get a.
Silva, we got your message, and I've asked Councillor Arts to start his comments. So go ahead, Councillor Arts.
Through your mayor to Rob, I feel your pain because I know some people that lived in subdivisions, and they said the speeders are the people that live in the subdivision. So it's not outsiders that are going, speeding down the road, going to work and coming home. It's your next door neighbor. So I think education is probably, if they're not gonna, yeah, that's just, thank you.
Add on, Councillor Silva.
You're absolutely right, Councillor Arts, and education is a key component to this. And my worry is that the education right now is going to be slow down in front of the parks, slow down in front of the schools, and then you can speed up again, which solves nothing. Like the corner of Westbrook Drive and Jeffreys Road, I'd love to use much harsher language, but considering we're in council, it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. Whether thanks to the increased traffic from people going in and out of Edgewater Estates, thanks to people coming in and out of the subdivision at all hours, especially when buses are coming through the neighborhood in the morning, it's an absolute mess. And so to not try to resolve those types of issues when we get a chance like this, which we've been waiting a year for now, it's mind-boggling. It's a missed opportunity, and I don't know how much more I need to put it out to tell staff and to put it out there that the times where the traffic counters, those are fine. They collect data. Unless you actually sit at an intersection and observe what's happening every morning around 8 to 9 o'clock, you don't actually understand what's going on. And so to take this super specific targeted approach when we had an opportunity to do something bigger it's just a waste of time, in my opinion.
Are there any other questions for, Rob, did you need to comment? Sorry.
I don't have a lot to add, but part of the financial implications, that's why we did identify what the cost is to implement broadly, in case council did want to revise the recommendation and wanted to go beyond what we're recommending. That's certainly council's prerogative. Alternatively, if council is looking for more data, we can certainly go back and reach out to additional municipalities and come back with more data to substantiate the approach.
Thank you, Rob, for the comment. I guess that opens the door. We have a choice here. We can make a motion to defer this and wait for more data and just defer, or we have a motion before us, and I'm inclined to suggest that we've done some work. We need to take first steps. We've heard from the public. These are areas where we have children and seniors, and if nothing else, the tickets that are handed out will be double what they were before in community safety zones. I understand your point about evidence-based decision-making as the Director of Public Works and Engineering, Rob. So I'll entertain, the motion before us is that a 40-kilometer default speed limit will be established on local and collector streets and settlement areas adjacent to large pedestrian generators as shown in the appendix, and that the 40-kilometer speed limit zone will be designated community safety zones as shown in Appendix A, and the implementation will occur as budget and resources permit. And further, that the parking and the traffic bylaw 2019-92 be amended as per Appendix B. If there is a mover and a seconder, then we'll do that. And if there's another wish, then we'll do that. I'll ask for Councillor Arts and Councillor Shipley. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you. Moving to public meetings now. We have we had two items. 8.2 has been deferred. So we only have to deal with 8.1, which is a request to remove the holding symbol on Martin Road filed by 1748 6 Ontario Corporation. Let's see now. I'm not quite sure which planner. Mary, there you are. Good morning. Would you like to present the report here?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Council for hearing this application today. So this purpose of this application is to remove the H1 holding symbol from the zoning of the land located on Martin Road north of Wellington in Delaware. This application does pertain only to the lands as part of the plan of subdivision 39T-MC1201. The holding symbol itself, or the H1, prohibits any development until a subdivision agreement has been entered into with the municipality. And this subdivision agreement was passed by council by bylaw in April and then registered on title on September 25th. Additionally, the subdivision itself has been given final approval by the county, and there are no other outstanding matters pertaining to the development of the subdivision. So as such, planning staff recommend that the holding symbol, or the H1, be removed from the subject lands.
Okay, thank you for that report, Marion. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this that we know wants to? No one from the public. Are there questions from councillors of the planner? Okay, seeing none, then I think we can call the vote on the motion, which is, as I read, that the holding symbol for the land known as Plan 47 Part Lot 1 and 2, and further that 33 M788 be approved. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Scott and Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much, Marion. Moving to correspondence items. We have a number here. Are there any items that anyone wishes to ask about, speak to? Councillor Arts.
Through your mayor, I got a question on AMO. It was about the federal gas tax fund. And it said administration cost was $3,239,000. Is that just for them to look after that, or is that their whole budget?
Yeah, I think that was the administration cost for the whole thing.
Just to look after?
Yeah.
And where does AMO get their funding from? Is that us?
Yes, but the gas tax monies are
Oh yeah, I realize that. So that's okay.
Yeah. And also, just so you know, there was additional money that was coming from the government for gas tax. And in addition to the usual one, because it was administered once, there was no additional fee charged.
Yeah.
So it's not because they did it twice and they charged they just charged to get out the mailings and the letters and the checks and do the calculations and the audit. Yeah, there's the audit part too. Yeah, big bucks. Are there any other questions at all? Okay, seeing none, then a motion to receive correspondence items 9.1 through 9.9 as shown. Is there any? Yep, Councillor Shipley. Yep, thank you. And a mover, that is a seconder, Councillor Heffernan. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Now, I'll ask for a county council update. Just bear with the deputy mayor. We started at 1 and ended like at 5, so there was a lot there. You may have lots to say today.
The first item that was spent time on was SCORE and EDC, and they were talking about the public transit systems that are going on throughout the Southwest Community Transit, which is Brant, Gray, Oxford, Middlesex, Lambton Shores, Norfolk, Strathroy, Caradoc. These are small runs, probably twice a day, where they go one way and then come back in morning, and then the same thing at night. They're trying to standardize everything with the type of vehicles, the fare structures, and all that. They've been mandated, the province is funding this until the end of March 2023. So they have to come up with a sustainability plan to present to the province that this can go on beyond 2023 and not have funding from the province beyond that point in time. So that is a work in progress with that. So it's ongoing. It is running from Sarnia through to London with stops in Kamoka and Strathroy and Mount Bridges area. And then there's one from Oxford County coming through Thorndale and comes into London to Fanshawe College and some other places. Right now, the main fee is about $5 a trip each way. So it's fairly inexpensive, but whether that is enough to sustain the service going forward, probably not. So there may be some changes coming after 2023. Also, they're working on, the SCORE is working on workforce in agriculture, training sessions and different things for the people that are coming in and working on farms and seasonal farms, which includes training on operating equipment. So they're trying to cut down the number of injuries and that sort of thing from happening on farms, particularly with seasonal workers and younger people that are working on farms. We had a large delegation from the City of London on housing update from the city, social housing. They're mainly focusing on affordability and affordable housing for people. In today's world, that is becoming more and more of a challenge when you hear what some of the housing rates are across the province, particularly one in our own municipality that has seemed to skyrocket. The part of the problem here is too, they have 200 people right now living in unsettled conditions, living on the street or whatever, and they have a waiting list of 5,300 people waiting for social housing. So some people are living in some conditions now, but there's up to 200 that virtually are living on the streets and have nowhere to go. So LMHC is saying at this time right now they need 3,300 housing units. And of course, that's not happening right away. The average wait time for people is 5 to 7 years to get housing. So it doesn't happen overnight. Again, the cost of running this system is probably 40% administration. And you know, so if you've got a $10 million budget, probably close to $4 million goes to administration fees to operate all this. And that becomes a concern when that much money is being spent on just running a program and not actually going to solve the problems. The social services, they have a relief fund for you know, doing different things. It's a little over $6 million. So it's the part of the problem is that we're looking at too is that there are no new plans for any structures in the county. All the plans for next year are in the city. So there's nothing out here, and there are problems out here. For those who don't think there are problems out in the county, we had one report yesterday that said they've seen people on a playground, a person on a playground covering themselves with sand to help keep themselves warm for the night. So it's out there, it's in our municipalities. So it's something that we need to realize. To get social housing, all applications have to go through the City Housing Access Center. So that's something that is the procedure. It all goes through the city. And so that's how that all works. In 2013, assisted living in that one bedroom apartment was $750 a month. In 2020, it's now $950 a month for these type of things. And to sustain a rent of $950 a month, they're saying a gross income of $38,000 a year is what is required to have the apartment and maintain a living style. So that's going up too. They're also looking at modular housing to bring that into play because it is 30 to 50% faster to construct a modular house have it in place for somebody to move into. So they are starting to look at that. So as I mentioned, there's no new projects in the county, but the county has seen a 45% increase in county budget to social housing. So that's of a concern too. Our CEO is getting involved, and so is our Chief Roberts from the ambulance services is getting involved with the Oneida ambulance service. They're requesting some help there, so our CEO is going to assist there, as well as Chief Roberts, to try to get that operating more efficiently. The city has requested that they have a person added to the board, the board that runs the ambulance service in the county. They want some more, they pay a cost to it all, but they want to have some representation. So there was a bylaw passed yesterday to allow them to have one person appointed to that board. It's a 3-person board, or 4-person board, or 5, I forget now. Yeah, it'd be 5 now with the addition of one from the city. So yeah, there's a couple of contracts are out under budget or quotes. A quad cab pickup for the county came in at 57,000, budgeted for 65, and a regular cab Silverado 1500 came in at 36,000. So those are things, positive things. Right now, the county is starting to investigate a human resource officer or staff, because right now the management or department heads are looking after that sort of thing, and the need is to, they feel that things are starting to fall through the cracks a little bit, so they are investigating, are talking with municipalities in the county, see who has a need for that, and maybe a shared service through the county, which I don't believe we are in need of that. We have a pretty good staff who are operating for us right now. So whether we, I'm just not, I and I are looking at, maybe we're not interested in participating in that. Yeah, they want to look at doing it to improve existing services for staff, unions, and all that sort of thing. So they are lacking in that area, so they're looking into that. Just trying to catch up my notes here. Part of the HR thing too is for the ambulance service. They have unions, so they need to have something in place that better deals with issues at the human resource level with all the unions that are involved. The planning staff, a lot of the planning staff are still working remotely, and that seems to be working very well for the county. They're processing approximately 370 applications in 2020. A lot of applications coming in. PSAB budget passed for 2020 was $40,000. For 2019, the investment report for the county shows 19 million in investments and 16 million in cash. And as I mentioned earlier, CEO Rayburn will be working with Oneida on their ambulance service along with Chief Roberts, as he has been appointed. Chief Roberts actually has been appointed as the chief for the ambulance service in Oneida temporarily while they try to straighten things out. those are the main highlights, as Councillor, our Mayor Devine indicated. It was a rather lengthy meeting yesterday.
Thank you for the summary. Are there any questions for the deputy? Okay, seeing none, then we can move to, is there any other business anyone wants to raise before we move to bylaws? Seeing no hands, then we have 3 bylaws. The resolution is that bylaws number 2020-78 through 80, listed on our agenda today, be adopted as printed. Could I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Scott and Councillor Heffernan, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Now, we need a motion that Council Middlesex Centre adjourn to go closed pursuant to Section 239 of the Municipal Act as amended to discuss the following matters. Section 239 2B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal employees, and Section 239 2CA, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Could I have a mover to go into closed, please? Councillor Scott and Councillor Shipley. All in